A lot of people think they confuse appraisers and inspectors and say, did it pass the inspection or did it fail the inspection? Inspectors don't pass or fail.
That's up to the
They
buyer.
just document and alert and let the buyer know the current condition of the home.
Welcome to the RE Real Estate Podcast, where we discuss buying and selling real estate in black and white. Here are your hosts, Ben Harang and Clint Galliano.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the RE Real Estate Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Clint Galliano, and joining me is Ben Harang, my co-host. How
Good afternoon,
doing, Ben?
Clint. I'm doing terrific, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a nice, beautiful day. It's comfortable. I just came back from a few days on vacation. And even though my wife said the humidity was ridiculous, I could tell the difference between the humidity in San Antonio and the humidity when I got out of the car over here.
No doubt about it. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. I've been around a minute and I really don't remember it being this hot. And my comment was, we'll just wait till next month when we get to August. So anyway, thank God for air conditioning is all I have to say. All right. So
what are we talking about today?
All right. We're going to talk about the people involved in a real estate transaction, some of which a buyer meets, some of which they will never meet, don't even know they exist. So the first one that you will meet is, unless you're using an online lender, is the loan officer or mortgage broker. They're the ones that you call, they're the billboard you see on the side of the road, the first point of contact. They your application through the process. So they're the intake people, and they give it to people, what I refer to in the back office, to process all of the information. A processor, the loan processor, might follow up and gather some information that the mortgage broker missed or you didn't have at the time or something, just to complete the file. And then they keep your application going through the process. You don't know anything about the other people that they're dealing with on the back end, and it's their job to keep it moving through the pipeline. And a misconception, like Clint says, is that all you need is the pre-approval and you get the loan. That's not even close.
When can we close? I got my pre-approval.
In 45 days. That's when we can close. The pre-approval is just a cursory look at your financial situation. It's got to go through the full underwriting, all of the documents to back up what you told the mortgage broker on the front end. So it takes time, and there's a whole lot of people involved in that process. The expectation is 30 to 45 days once you get an agreement on a house is when you can close.
Speaking of underwriters, the gatekeeper you never speak to. They're the ones that evaluate the risk on behalf of the lender. They review your income, your debts, your credit, your property details, your insurance, all that stuff. They're often the ones that send back the conditions before your loan gets a full approval. You need to send your pay stubs for the last 2 months. You need to give an explanation for that $500 deposit or deduction or withdrawal out of your bank account, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting. I got to go visit UWM campus, United Wholesale Mortgage. They're up in just outside of Pontiac, Michigan. They took over, I don't remember which car company it was, but they took over a car company's whole facility, like a manufacturing plant, and converted it to offices, and they run their whole business. So they're a wholesale mortgage lender. So that means that they supply loans to all of a lot of our local mortgage brokers, and they do that across the country. And so they've got whole sections that all they do. And I'll say there's this one section that's probably, 10, 12,000 feet. And it's just a bunch of cubicles. And all the people in that section do is call on the day of closing and verify that the buyers are still employed.
Note to buyers, do not quit your job the day before you close or the day you close. Do not do that. That's a bad idea. That's not going to end well for you.
Ben had a bad experience.
I'm not going to tell you why I say that. It's just not going to end well for you. Believe me. Okay.
So they're set up to do all of these different things that they have to do to verify all your information and all. They've got teams of people that's their specific job. And it's kind of poetic too, that they're in an old car factory because they're taking the Ford factory approach and saying, all right, here's where you rivet the chassis together. Here's where you do this. Here's where you do that. And it just passes on from area to area. So it's kind of neat. And underwriters, they're invisible, but they're critical because they're the ones that go through and dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that everything's there.
Right. And it's almost as if you take the approach that they're trying to disprove anything you ever told them. So you need to be forthright and upfront, because if they come up with information that is different than what you told them, the brakes get pumped. And that's a problem. It's difficult to get over that. So just understand the process is give them what they ask for. Don't do anything foolish like buy a house full of furniture or go buy a new car or quit your job the day of the closing. And you'll probably get to the closing. But don't add any consternation to the process because there are people out there. It's almost like they're looking for a reason not to lend you the money. And if you give them a reason, they're going to take it.
Yeah. So something specific to South Louisiana, they're going to verify that you're not in a flood zone that needs flood insurance because they're going to make sure that you've got it. They're also going to verify that your insurance meets their requirements. In the last episode, we talked about how some lenders in Louisiana are now going to allow you to buy the coverage that you need for your property and not a minimum standard or replacement value. Now you're going to be able to buy cash value. Well, not every lender is going to follow that. Some lenders may still require replacement value insurance. So that's part of what the underwriter's job is to make sure that your insurance matches what they require. All right. Next, we're going to talk about the appraiser.
All right. The value referee. So the buyer wants to get the house for as little as they can. The seller wants to sell it for as much as they can. And sometimes one prevails over the other. The appraiser, the buyer pays for the appraisal. The appraiser works for the bank. Now let that sink in. You paying for it, but they can't even talk to you. They have to get permission from the bank before they can talk to you. Once the bank gets the appraisal, it took an act of Congress to force the lenders to give the buyer the appraisal that they paid for. That's where that comes in. Appraisers are all nice people and all that stuff. They work for the lender.
Don't ever literally or figuratively an act of Congress.
Literal act of Congress, because the lender said that's our appraisal. They said, yeah, it's your appraisal, but the buyer paid for it. Give him a copy. You know, they're not saying they can do anything with it, but give them a copy. So in 10 years when they sell it, they can see how big their house is. They paid for it. Let them have it. Used to be in the Stone Ages before 2008, before the meltdown. The lenders had their preferred appraisers, and there may or may not have been collusion. There's some accusations and lawsuits about appraisers giving the value that the lenders wanted to make the deal work. So they created something called an appraisal management company that's supposed to be transparent. The lender can never talk to the appraiser. The appraiser, we used to meet the appraiser at the site. The appraisers don't want to talk to us anymore because they're not working for us. They're working for the lender. Sometimes they're cordial. Sometimes they say, let me in the house and leave me alone. Let me do my thing. So I let them do their thing. It changed because of the housing crisis in 2008. But make no mistake, the appraiser is there for the lender to make sure the sales price, the property covers the collateral to cover the loan at the sales price. So I think I said that right. So that's another step to protect the lender. Did I miss anything?
The only other thing would be that they're not there to verify code or repairs. They're just, unless they call for a repair, then they'll have to come back and verify that repair. They just look at market value, not functionality. Unless it's an FHA overlay.
If they call anything out, like peeling paint for an FHA or
right
appliances that don't work for an FHA, they'll have to come back for that.
They will check. Yeah, like I said, FHA overlay. They'll check, make sure the appliances work.
Yeah, check for junction boxes in the attic and just things that we typically try to look out for on the front end.
Yeah, and for the most part, they're not going to go climb all over in the attic. They're just going to pop their head in, and if they see anything from there, that's the main things they look at.
And I used to be concerned about the reinspection, about them finding something they missed the first time. Well, I've come to understand early on that they have absolutely no interest in finding something they missed the first time, because if they do, they have to explain it. I've seen appraisers walk to the back bathroom where a valve had to be changed or something, take a picture of the valve, and walk out of the house because he didn't want to see anything else. He didn't want anything else to get his attention that he may have missed the first time. So we just let them in. They go do what they need to do on the reinspection and get out. So the reinspections are actually easy.
Then, depending on the type of financing you're using, special appraisers certified for that type of loan, like FHA or VA. That means that they have to be certified for that type of appraisal. None of the local appraisers meet or are available for that criteria. Then they will have somebody from out of town come in. So we occasionally have our market. We have a few appraisers in here. I don't know what the number is, but I know it's more than a dozen that are local. But we occasionally have appraisers come in out of New Orleans. Sometimes it's not an issue. Sometimes it is because they're not familiar with the market. It shouldn't be an issue, but sometimes it is. But it's just, that's things we run into and deal with as needed. All right. The home inspector.
You got this one, Clint.
All right. Also known as the red flag finder. All right. So home inspectors are hired and paid for by the buyer. As agents, if the buyer doesn't have any preference for a home inspector, we provide a list of recommendations for inspectors that we've worked with in the past and work well with. Basically, their job is to go in and review the systems and the structure. So roof, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, things like that. They create a report, excuse me, that lists the defects, potential concerns, and safety issues, which are the most things that you want to be concerned with. They will let you know the condition of the house or home that you're buying, and not to beat up the sellers with, just because of what they did. They will kind of make you nervous with the way their report reads, but that's just to make it clear that they are just putting in what they observed, and that if you have any question or concern, bring in a licensed professional for whatever it is you have a question or concern with. Big distinction. A lot of people think they confuse appraisers and inspectors and say, did it pass the inspection or did it fail the inspection? Inspectors don't pass or fail.
That's up to the buyer.
They just document and alert and let the buyer know the current condition of the home. Main thing is, if you are getting a pier and beam home, make sure that your inspector is going to climb under there and check things out, space permitting. If he can't, then that's a whole other issue that you need to take into consideration. So, but make sure that they do that. And the majority of them, everyone I've worked with, will do that. They'll climb under the home and let you know what's going on under there. Some optional add-ons that you can get with your home inspection is a termite inspection, sewer scope, mold or air quality testing. Those are typically not included with a general home inspection, but they can be added on for additional costs.
Right. And the home inspector is licensed by the Home Inspector Board, and they get additional certifications for the termite inspection, the sewer scope, and the mold and air quality testings. They try to make sure that they know what they're doing to do things like that.
Yeah, they're not just buying something off of Temu and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna start selling these inspections now."
Exactly. And I've talked to people that have gone through the process, gotten licensed, and then realize they have to find a business, and it's a tough job. People that are good at it, people that are not so good at it. But don't confuse this with the appraisal. These people, the home inspector works for the buyer. The appraiser works for the lender. Might seem like not a big deal, but in my mind it is. All right.
Ben, why don't you talk about the pest inspector / termite company?
The termite certificate, formerly known as a WDIR, a wood destroying insect report. So it's not just termites. It's powder post beetles, and it's just all kinds of things that wreak havoc in a house. But basically what they do, they come in and see if they see any signs of active termites. And if they know what they're doing, they can spot them kind of walking up. There's a good friend of mine that he walks up to a house and he said, right there in the corner, he picks it out every time. For the untrained eye, it's difficult, but for him, he knows exactly what he's looking at and what he's looking for. The idea that you just had your termite renewal inspection done last week, That's not a WDIR. It's a specific report where they come in and document that they did not see any active infestation. They saw no evidence of infestation. They had places they couldn't visually see, so they can't see at all. But it just says a trained eye did not see any active infestation that day. And they're typically good for 30 days prior to closing. So we don't want to get them too soon until you're well within that 30 days in case you have an extension for whatever reason. You don't have to do that twice. Some companies these days are no longer doing WDIRs, the inspections. Some of the national termite companies just decided they don't want to be in that business. So we need to lean on local people. Sometimes it's to the point to where we have a termite contract with a national termite company. We have to go to a local termite company to get the WDIR. And the seller says, well, why you got two? I said, because those people won't give us a WDIR under any conditions. So we just need to be cognizant of what we can and cannot do sometimes. You know, if you have a national contract and you wait 3 days before the closing to get it, you're not going to get it. So we're in South Louisiana. One more point, and I'm going to give it back to Clint. In South Louisiana, we're humid, it rains a lot. Termites need moisture to live, and they're generally subterranean. They find the moisture in the ground and follow it up into the house. And once they get into there, especially if there's an active leak, they never have to come out. The moisture from the top will keep feeding them, and they'll wreak havoc on you. So my suggestion is get the termite contract, get it inspected, and make sure you don't have any active termites when you buy the house. And at that point, don't worry about it again unless you see something. And you'll see swarms in the spring, early summer, and it looks like termites are everywhere. The Formosans, the flying termites, and they're looking for a place to land. And if they find a place, it's not fun. But they generally don't find a place around. Well, I say generally, they can find a place around here. But just because you see them swarming does not mean you have termites in your house. All right, Clint.
All right, so I want to add to that because I've run across this twice. If you have a house and you're thinking about selling, and say you added a section of slab, or say it's pier and beam and you've got a chain wall. In those two situations, local companies that do provide termite inspections or wood destroying insect inspections, they will not generate one unless they also provide a treatment, just because of the nature of the conditions. With the chain wall, with a chain wall that's sealed all the way around a house, they're gonna they don't like that type of situation just because it retains the moisture, keeps it trapped under the house. So they're not going to say, okay, we can guarantee that for the next 30 days there's not going to be termites. So they're not going to say that without providing treatment to that house.
Right. Sometimes they require the treatment to issue the certificate.
And then on the case of where you've added a slab and expanded the house, unless you're under contract and they treated prior to putting in the slab and have been treating and inspecting the whole time, they're not going to give one either unless they treat the house there also, right? Because they don't know what's in between the seams of the two slabs. So those are two things to consider.
All right. You up for the title company?
Title company / closing attorney, because we in Louisiana and we slightly different. They do things differently in other states.
Just a little bit.
So title companies are closing attorneys. They're the behind the scenes legal glue. All right. So
is that Elmer's glue?
Could be. Could be Elmer's. It could be Gorilla. Depends on which one it is.
You're right.
All right. So they research the title history. They're looking for liens. They want to make sure that there's the proper transfer of ownership and make sure there's no encumbrances on the title. Things that would make it iffy to insure the title when it transfers to the new owners. They also provide title insurance policies, both for the lender if the home is financed and also for the new owners. Owners' title policies are not required, but I always advise, at least in our area, that the buyers get owners' title policies, because if there's any type of issue that comes up because of, previous owner comes up out of the woodwork and said they didn't know about a previous sale, even if it was 2 or 3 transactions back, and they've got a legal foot to stand on, if you don't have title insurance, you're SOL. The lender will get paid because they'll require you to have title insurance. If you bought cash, you're still SOL because they're not required to make you whole. So
Right.
that's why I always advise getting that owner's title policy.
Yes. Yes.
They coordinate the signing of all the final documents and handle disbursement of funds. So they make sure that the lender, if there's a mortgage, they make sure the mortgage gets paid off. They pay off or they pay out any like WDIR charges, treatment charges. They pay the real estate agents. And they also are often confused with escrow agents in other states, which is a whole different thing that I know nothing about. So I'm not going to go further than that.
Yeah, please don't.
Other
They
states
they
are
have something
weird.
they have something called it's in escrow, and I never understood what they were talking about, what stage that's in. I guess it's with the title company waiting to close.
Other states are weird. Louisiana doing things, the only state that does things
Right,
that way.
right. We're right. The rest of the world is wrong. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All
Yeah.
right.
All right. So many closings are handled by attorneys or title companies with in house attorneys. They may also coordinate payoff verifications and filing documents with the parish. So, all of that fun stuff. And the big thing is expect to sign a lot of documents. If your lender is modern and on top of things, they'll have you e sign a lot of stuff, and the stack of paperwork is going to be minimal. If they're not up to date, then I've seen people with a 3-inch stack of documents having to sign it. And God forbid that you're also signing power of attorney for somebody else while you're also signing for yourself. Bring a
Yeah.
wrist brace and
Yeah.
make
So
sure you have your ID and your closing funds when you show up to buy.
that would be a good idea. And you can read every word in every one of those documents. There's not one thing that's advantageous to you as the buyer. You don't have to sign it. If you don't sign it, you're not buying a house. Not a word, not a period, not a comma is going to get changed. The closing attorney will go over the highlights for you, and he essentially says you paid a note, none of this matters. Enough
Yeah.
about that, I think.
All right. Why don't you talk about real estate agents?
All right. Near and dear to my heart. We coordinate, negotiate, and translate for you. We try to bring it down to the level you can understand what's really going on with the transaction. We obviously help you find and evaluate the house and write the purchase agreement for you. We coordinate with the termite guy, the home inspector, the appraiser to get them in the house so they can do their job so the process can continue. If there's anybody has questions about the paperwork, we are the go-to because we know more about the transaction and what deal we put together than anybody else. So if anything needs to be clarified, they come to us. We as agents may have somebody working with us that we call transaction coordinators that will take care of some of the paperwork. Imagine people that are running around all day don't have the energy left to do the paperwork correctly, so they need some help with that. And they may have a transaction coordinator that you may get to know during the process. One of the things we don't do as a buyer's agent is coordinate the repairs. We only request them from the seller. The seller does them, and then we go in after the fact just to confirm that they're done. And I say we with the buyer's agent and the buyer. Sometimes the buyer pushes it all on us and are not real interested in any of the follow-up until there's a problem. But I like when I go back, I like to have the buyer with me so he or she can see exactly what was done and how it was done. So if there's a concern, we'll know about it then and there. And I think that's the negotiation and the hand holding, and that's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
Yep, pretty much. The only other thing I'll add is that sometimes we may involve a showing partner. If we've got multiple things going on, we may involve some of our colleagues to help out, open up for inspections, do showings, that type of stuff.
Yeah. And I had a brilliant thought, Clint, and I lost it. And I know you're going to leave that in the
Poof. It's gone.
I got it. We play counselor. One of the biggest things we do is take the emotion out of a transaction. It's a highly emotional transaction for both the buyers and the sellers. And it's our job to bring it down to a level where the buyers can make a rational, and the sellers can make a rational decision, not an emotional decision that they'll regret 24, 48 hours later. You know, I talk often about talking people off the ledge. Take a breath, think about it, sleep on it. Let's talk tomorrow. Let's get through this. Let's make the right decision for you, not an emotional decision that you're going to regret the day after you make it. Sometimes we have difficult conversations with people because if I know something, I need to share it with my client. Some clients are more receptive to the truth than others. So we just do what we need to do. We do it as politely as we can, but it's a grown-up conversation at times that needs to happen, and the buyer and the buyer's agent need to be able to have those conversations. The seller and the seller's agent need to be able to have those conversations, and that's when you don't want to have a dual agent. That's another reason not to use the listing agent. When there's an issue that comes up, you want somebody on your side, not somebody straddling the fence. So, all right. I guess I'm up.
You just did that, didn't you?
I did that.
Yeah, you did the agents.
Okay, I did. My bad.
Yeah, so
my bad.
I'm
trying to hog the FaceTime.
All right, we can do some quick hits on some other players to be aware of. That's the insurance agents. You want to try and get that locked in place early because that's going to tie back into the underwriters because they're going to be looking to have that insurance bound early. Local reason why is what we're in right now, hurricane season. You know, if there's a named storm in the Gulf, typically they're not going to write new policies until the threat passes. So that's why you want to stay on top of that. You want to make sure they're writing the appropriate wind and hail or named storm coverage for the property. Next, this one is not as common, but it may be something that you need to look at is a surveyor. You may need to confirm property boundaries for cash deals or VA loans. Additionally, if you're buying a parcel out of a bigger parcel of property and the deal requires that the buyer, well, whether you're the buyer or the seller, whoever gets it's decided on is going to cover it. You may have to deal with the surveyor to mark out that property. And depending on where it's at, it may involve getting drainage studies done and all kinds of fun stuff that I never knew existed.
Oh, yeah, it's fun.
But now I do. For $1,000 piece of property, you may be looking at spending $3,000 on studies and surveys. And that was a couple of years ago.
And then there's something called a detention pond that is nothing but a...
Let's not go there.
Okay. I'll leave that one alone.
Yeah. That's kind of more on the, well, depending on what you're building and where, but that's kind of more on the developer side almost.
Well, they also require it when you divide a piece of property into two sometimes. Anyway, that's another conversation. That could be a topic we do later on.
Let me pull that up. Put that in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then contractors and repair specialists may be brought in for post-inspection for quotes on repairs or upgrades, depending on the need. Sellers may request proof of professional repair. No, buyers may request proof of professional repair for major issues. Mm-hmm. My bad. All right, Ben, give us some final thoughts.
All right. So buying a house is more than just signing 3 inches worth of paper. There's a whole lot of effort and time that goes into getting to the closing table. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I'd much rather people ask questions and understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, what's expected of them, what's expected of me, who's doing what, why this is going on, why that, why we need to do this, why we need to do that. I'm happy to answer those questions. I want you to be comfortable with the process. We're by your side from the time we meet before we pick out the house to the closing table. Everybody else you touch occasionally, you and I spend the most time together during that process. I don't have all the answers, but if I don't have an answer to your question, I'm gonna find it. The earlier you understand what goes on in a transaction and what to expect, the better you're gonna be. I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna have some anxiety. Most people do. Most people are not cold-blooded, but hang in there. Let's talk through when you get anxious and you don't think anything's going in the right direction, and it might be normal for us and you're thinking it should be moving faster, or it's moving too fast and you think it should be moving slower, whatever it is. But we can talk about it. I don't get my feelings hurt if somebody asks me a question, they challenge me. That's what we do every day. Let's have the conversation, put your mind at ease, and we'll get to a smoother transaction and probably get to the closing table sooner. So that's my thoughts. Want to add to them, Clint?
Yep. Main thing is that if you know of anybody that's just starting their home search, share this episode with them. Let them get to know what to expect and get them to listen to the buyer episodes in our playlist so that they can be familiar with the process of what it's like to buy a home and what's involved. Let them know that we're available to consult and walk through the process with them. No obligations. We'll either one of us, or both of us, if you want, let you know what you can expect. And that's the main thing, other than like, share, comment, and subscribe at realestatepodcast.com.
We got that in twice today.
Hey. And you can watch the video versions. You can listen to the audio version through your web browser, or you can subscribe with your favorite podcast app. You can ask a question. You can access Ben or my personal agent website. You can do all the things from right there. All right, Ben, I think that's it. It's another one in the can.
All right, Clint, enjoyed it, man. Have a good day.
You too, Ben.
While we may discuss topics such as lending, interest rates, title law, real estate law, and appraisals in addition to real estate sales and transactions, please remember that we are only trained and licensed as real estate salespeople in Louisiana. The information shared on this podcast is for general purposes only and should not be taken as legal or financial advice. We may be agents, but unless we have signed paperwork stating otherwise, we are not your agents.